Hello, listeners, and thank you so much for staying with us, listening to Gareth's story. Welcome to part 2. Thank you to our sponsors, Little Voices. Are you a teacher with a passion for drama, music and performance, or feeling stuck in the classroom? Little Voices gives you the chance to step into a role where you can truly inspire young minds through the arts. This is a company I know well and admire. They're passionate about child development, highly rated and genuine and transformative. With small group teaching, a focus on confidence and creativity, with the opportunity to guide children through Lambda qualifications, you can make a real impact. Plus, with the support of a nationwide franchise network behind you, you can run your own successful business, doing what you love while teaching in a way that truly fits your life.
Hello, and welcome to the Pit Pony podcast with myself, Sharon Cawley,
and me, Sarah Dunwood,
in which we talk to teachers from all walks of life who exited the classroom from what they thought was a job for life and thrived on the other side of teaching. Coming up in this episode...
Do you stay? Do you go? I had the choice of you either put up and shut up until you retire, which is goodness knows how many decades away, or you roll the dice and you try something else. There were conversations, again, not just at work, but in life in general, with people about things that I just didn't think mattered. The small talk notion. I didn't want to have small talk. Where are you going on your holiday? Arguments that they'd had with their partners and disagreements. It didn't matter. I just wanted to scream at them, go home and hug your children.
Yeah. You've become intolerant. You've become intolerant to a set of circumstances that deeply matter to people, that are relevant and important and in the life goes on kind of way. But you can't connect with that anymore. You can't resonate. You're exactly right in what you're saying. It's white noise now because you haven't walked in my shoes. This is not... And an intolerance is only 2 steps away from anger and annoyance, and from which all sit around that injustice of the grief of Clara.
Yeah. I mean, it probably sounds... Look, now I talk about it out loud, it sounds selfish of me to think, no, just go home and hug your children. But I'm really sorry to anyone I might have done that to. I don't remember ever saying it. I remember thinking it. But if I ever presented as being like that to anybody, I'm really sorry. It was just where my head was at the time. Of processing all these different emotions and all these different feelings. In a school sense, parent problems, like if the normal things that parents come knocking on the door about, I would deal with them, but in my head I'm going, that doesn't matter. Your child's fit and healthy and at school. They're enjoying their schooling. It doesn't matter to me.
But this is now creating a conflict because, yes, that's how you're feeling. Yes, it's perfectly understandable, but it's not serving the role you are doing, because the complete Mr. Dale should give 2 hoots about the fact that he's forgot his trainers and he's become really anxious. And so where do we go?
Oh, well, we carry on being in education, jumping through hoops that we all know, but with a massive sense of shutters being down, grief being rife. I remember there was one conversation I had with somebody not within education, and they made me angry because they clearly did not understand what was going on in my head. I remember this conversation vividly. It was not at work, but somebody said to me, you should be okay. You've got your daughter now. And what? No, that's not how this works. That was the worst thing that could possibly have been said to me, because they clearly did not understand. There was this teaching counselling hotline. I can't remember the name of the company, but I rang them to try and explain my situation. And word for word, the lady on the other end said, "Oh, that's a big one. I'm not sure what help I can be."
Oh, jeez.
Now, that was nobody at work. That was not work. That was
Wow.
just this teacher emergency mental health hotline.
But Gareth, can you imagine phoning 999 and saying, "Hi, this has just happened. I'm sorry." That's beyond me, Law.
Yeah, I remember I was on the way to work one morning and I described my situation and she went, "Oh, I'm not sure what help I can be." I thought, okay, I'm on my own here, aren't I?
But now, thinking about it, let's just pause for a minute. Why do you think we have a Facebook group of 185,000 members? Why do you think podcasts like this are so important? Because we might not have the answers, but at least with the Pit Pony podcast, with Life Out of Teaching, Life Out After, I can't even remember the name of the ruddy Facebook group, Life After Teaching, forgive me. People do understand. They might not have all the answers, but I should imagine when you put that phone down, you just felt completely alone, which is why, Gareth, this podcast is so important.
Well, this was 2015. So there was no Facebook group. There was no podcast. Yeah. It was very much, I had that conversation and I almost instantly thought, right, I've just got to get my head down, get through this. It happened, but it's turned out okay.
Yeah.
Because I now have my daughter, like that person said to me previously.
Wow.
And at the or give it a few months, a year or so, I felt okay, but now I can see that I really wasn't.
Or you just got used to feeling like that, so that became
more that. Yes, I've got used to feeling like that. I'd stuck a new daughter-sized plaster over a gaping trauma wound, and I did my best. And work were brilliant. I settled. I was doing my best for the children, but my outlook on education and my outlook on life had changed forever. But I didn't notice this properly until I was invited into the head teacher's office for one of those, "What do you want to happen next year?" conversations. And he said, "What do you want to happen next year?" And I said, "I don't know." He said, "I'd like you to take on maths." And I thought that's when it hit me, because I didn't want to. I didn't want to take on maths. I was quite happy just being class teacher, because that was the person, that was the character that had carried me through all this. The days of me saying, when I'm running it myself, I'll do it this way, that way, this way, that way, they gone. Priorities had shifted. But then so I said, "No, thank you." He said, "But you said at your interview that you were willing to take on maths." And I thought, yeah, I did. You're absolutely right. Everything you've said is correct. But my mindset is now completely different to the person that applied for this job. I am not in a space anymore where I want to be doing more paperwork. I want to be a class teacher, and that is it. Whether that will change in a few years, don't know. But right now, I am clinging to Mr. Dale as much as I possibly can.
And you know what, Gareth? That happens all the time. People go off on maternity leave, and who they were when they were, "I'm ambitious, this is what I want to do." Circumstances in life change. So please don't beat yourself up about it. You've already said, "Nope, not for me." How did that go down?
Well, I took on maths because I thought, I can't fault him. He is saying the right thing. So I took the maths on and thought, yeah, I'm a teacher with X number of years experience. I can do maths as well. But my mindset, my priorities, and my view on life had shifted massively. this recruitment crisis and retainment crisis in teaching because of unnecessary bureaucracy and paperwork and unrealistic expectations of workload on teachers. Teachers are rightly questioning why they have to undertake these administrative tasks. They're not questioning why they have to teach children. Sorry, I've gone off on one. Sorry.
Oh, go off. We go off on one all the time. Don't you worry. There's a lot coming out of this. There's a lot. And straightforward question. You do maths. How does that go then with some additional responsibility? What does the next iteration of Mr. Dale look like? Don't worry, because I know you're holding a lot of chronology in your head here, Gareth, and you've been crystal clear so far, so just please continue where you feel comfortable.
Well, I took on maths. I must have carried on for 2 academic years, and I just carried on going through the motions, loving being teacher persona, but knowing deep down something had shifted, something had changed, something wasn't right. There was this mix of trauma and shock that was still there, but I thought I'd got it under control, but it hadn't been dealt with. There was a difference between having this trauma under control and knowing what to do, but then I hadn't dealt with it because I didn't know how to deal with it. But I thought, I can't do this job forever. But being in the teacher mindset, you don't know what else you can do. There's this, I've been in education since I was 22. What on earth else am I qualified to do? I got stuck in that mindset. The plaster that was over the wound, that was something I'd learned to live with. But life was just happening. And it was playing out. And I wasn't making stuff happen. I was a passenger in my own life. But then I opened my eyes. One day, I don't know what changed. I can't remember when it was. Can't remember the moment. But I opened my eyes to what I was doing, of being a passenger and not having a purpose. And that's when I noticed that just completely different change in story. I'd watched all the TV I wanted to watch. I couldn't teach myself piano like I was doing because we had a baby upstairs. Be woken up by it. And through various chats with various people, I started to think, I need to do something here. I've been through something like I have been through. What do I do now in order to live? Because in that space, I'd lost my granny and granddad. And then that helped me identify what grief was, because they were the first people, sorry, not the first people I'd lost. They were the first people after Clara that I'd lost.
Yeah.
And the passing of my granny, something's twigged.
You shift up a generation.
Yeah.
You suddenly go, okay, there's no great grandparents in the mixer now. There's and eventually when you get to the ripe old age of me and Sarah, you're the top of the shop. So they really are those, times winged chariot and all that kind of thing in the background. But you're right. They start as whispers.
Yeah.
They said just
very much that. I had voices. I just started to think, I need to do something. What is it that I want to do? So I started running, and I still to this day, we're going back to 2017 at the moment, I still to this day religiously go to park run every Saturday. And I remembered another part of me remembered a conversation that I'd had with my mum and dad when I must have been about 17, 18. And I said to them, I'm going to write a book. And why that came back to me, no idea. But when I was 17 or 18, I'd made various notes about the sort of story and the sort of characters I wanted to have, but never done anything with it because I was 17, 18. There are other things going on in the world when you're 17, 18. But then in November of 2017, I dug those notes out and got the laptop out and just started typing with no real idea of where I was going with it. I just literally put finger to laptop and started typing.
Because the piano's noisy, there's certain things you can't do. What can I do? I can do this, and in a strange way, almost compelled to do this. This is where the universe, who potentially has let you down so badly in the past, is now nudging you into a track. So the fingers are at the laptop, you're typing away.
And I just channeled the films that I loved watching, the books that I loved reading, the television programs that I've watched and loved, and just created this world, which became my Sophie Hardy books.
Okay. You're still in the classroom.
Yeah.
Sophie Hardy books have come to you really early on. What's going on with you there?
It felt like a release in some way that I hadn't yet fathomed. I have since fathomed it, but right at that moment, I was just typing feverishly. Like, this is incredible. It was amazing. I just couldn't stop. And then one book became two. And then my evenings were taken up with either finishing the schoolwork as close as a teacher can get to finishing their schoolwork, to then, right, put that away, get me my stories, get typing.
Also, I've never watched Doctor Who, to be perfectly honest, but a new Doctor is emerging, a new character, a new version of you. There's Mr. Dale in the classroom, there's you at home, and then suddenly a third persona has come in. The children's author has been born from this. Okay.
I spoke about previously having a purpose, and it was like I'd found mine. This purpose that I'd been searching for. Yes, I was a loving dad, but I wanted something else. I was a teacher, but I wanted something else. And my typing and my books became that something else. Then in the September of 2018, while still in the midst of typing these stories out, we had our next daughter, and I'd sit by her cot typing away at stories, and the contrast from sitting by second daughter's cot and checking her stomach was going up and down to make sure she was breathing, to next daughter sitting there with this passion, with this thing that I'd got that was mine. The contrast was incredible. And I was happy again. But it was a sort of happiness where that asterisk was still there, and it still reared its head occasionally. But I'd got something.
Yeah. I can feel that, and when you said the sentence, Sarah, I'm sure I was happy again. I almost exhaled to hear that, because even though you've said you sat there, you're typing away, we know this isn't typical in many respects, but to hear the start of a turning point here it's lovely.
Yeah,
it's
whatever
lovely.
possessed me to pick up the laptop that day and start, that changed my life. And it was around that time that confidence had started to grow again. This finding a purpose was making all the difference. So I thought a new work challenge might be in order. So I've found this new passion, but again, still with teacher mindset of what else can you do? There's nothing else I'm qualified to do. It's all I've known since I was 22. Let's go out. Let's explore other schools, because ready to move on.
Yeah, but peak irony is, what else can I do? Well, you're doing it.
Yeah, I could have sung that at the time. I couldn't see it. I know looking back now, I'm going, you literally got it in front of your face. But I didn't see it. So I just thought, oh, new school might change everything. And this was around Christmas 2019. But then we all know what happened in March 2020. We got locked down. And yeah, I saw all the conversations about furlough and everything else. I thought, no, you've got a job. Just stay there. You've got a safe. It's a job that pays. You're not going to be furloughed. You're still going in to look after key workers once a week for the first lockdown. You've got a job. So that again sort of took a back seat. And everyone's got their COVID story. Mine was hard in some ways, but not as hard as others. I didn't lose anybody during COVID, but it was the start of an enlightening process. That thing of being away from school and having time at home, uploading a bit of work for the children to do, and then having the day to yourself. I spent my COVID playing with my daughters and typing. And
or even I would just take a step back there, Gareth. I spent my time in COVID playing with my daughters and typing and healing.
Yeah. And I remember one day all over the kitchen table there were reams of paper because I was just planning out story part after story part after story part. And when I went back after that first lockdown, I started to see more gaping holes in the education system. And once I'd seen them, I couldn't unsee them.
Because after a while, it doesn't become about a school. It becomes about a system. It's not necessarily what's going on within that particular classroom. It's a bigger picture, isn't it?
This was no fault of that school at all, categorically. This was education wide.
Please feel free to talk about the education. Don't worry, we're not going to hold it personal to any school you've worked in at the time. So you can have your offload about education as much as you like.
Well, to go off on a tangent then about the education system, in this country and seemingly worldwide, it's based on the very outdated train children up to work in the factories and the Victorian way of doing things. You've got a uniform that's worn. You've got a foreman that's in charge. You've got a bell that rings to signal the changing of rooms. You aren't allowed to go to the toilet when you want to. You've got to line up after break and formally file into the classroom. It's just all these things were starting to become clear. And we're filling children with nonsense at the minute that they have to unlearn when they get to adulthood.
But if you want to go along with the theory and the analogy of the factory, they were manufacturing a product that somebody actually wanted, whether it was cotton or wheat or whatever. We're putting them in factories and we're manufacturing things that are now no longer fit for purpose. So the whole idea of the factory works to a certain extent, but a Victorian factory at least was meeting supply and demand.
And we're teaching them, we teach things like don't copy. But when you're an adult, you're supposed to find someone to look up to and then copy their, not find your own way of doing their thing.
Mm.
So if you want to run a tutoring business, you come and see Sharon. She's done it. Find out how she did it. Copy her.
Why are we teaching children copying is bad when we live in a world of AI and we're now living in a world where if the wheel has been invented, we don't need to reinvent it again. It comes down to the archaic curriculum that's no longer fit for purpose. Anyway, we could go on about that all day. Sarah Dunwood will be chewing through a fist trying to get in on this one. So you're finding your purpose, but you're in You're in a system that's now not fit to support this purpose.
I was then tasked with doing year 6, and I loved doing year 6. That gave me a breath of fresh air because it was like doing a different job. Because you've got that SATs pressure, I thrived on that SATs pressure. It gave me a challenge that I was dreading, but then when I actually did it, I thought, yeah, I quite like this. And this underlying sadness was still there. My daughters were getting older, and now that the younger one was out of the baby and toddler phase and the year 6 drive had kicked in, I thought I might have found my work purpose again, which was just such a curveball from seeing all these things that were wrong to then, hang on a minute, try year 6. Oh, yeah, quite like this. Quite liking this. That then changed completely when they introduced schemes. It seems to me that before lockdown, it was referred to as death by PowerPoint. Now, everything is PowerPoint. And I can cope with people telling me what to teach. I don't mind being told who to teach. I don't mind being told when to teach, but I will not be told how to teach. And these schemes that have been brought in of, here is your art lesson, here is a pre-made PowerPoint, and you teach it like this. No.
That's sitting in the one world where you're at your happiest and you found your purpose. There's paper scattered all over the kitchen table. You're being creative. You're going off on tangents. There's no framework on which you're hanging your stories. You've got free reign, which is now acting as a complete contrast to what's going on in the workplace.
Yeah. And again, this is education wide. This is not one school. This is everybody.
Oh yeah, this is the pit ponies that we're talking to. This is why we wouldn't have a podcast if this was happening in one school, Gareth. This is about British education.
But just backtracking ever so slightly, in the start of 2022, my wife and I agreed to separate, and it was going to be another emotional, stressful time. And having been through that already within education, I knew it was going to be hard work. It scared me. So again, I threw myself into writing. And during the separation process and the being at work, it was the emotional release that I needed. And I managed to write my final 3 books in the space of about 6 months because I was just channeling all my emotion into those books. I had many tears at work while doing year 6. But then in the November, my wife and I now ex-wife and I went our separate ways. But I then had to move in with my mum and dad because my house wasn't ready. And again, called on Mr. Dale to get me through. And previously, he would have helped. But because he was so limited by PowerPoint, there was nothing special about me in my class anymore. The character that I wanted to be was limited to press the button, here's our next slide, have a look at this. So the saving grace character that had been couldn't fulfill that job anymore.
I'm half tempted to say good, because it's about time that whoever you are comes to your own wisdom. That has he actually been the scaffold you needed to get you through, or was he the straitjacket that kept you trapped for too long? So to a certain extent, I am really glad that on the 5th iteration of Mr. Dale going back into the classroom, at least the 5th, it no longer served him.
Yeah. And I'd released my first book by then, and there was World Book Day 2023, and I just looked around my classroom and there were at least 10 of them all reading my book. 2 kids had even come dressed as characters from my book.
Wow.
Dressed as me.
Or a version of you.
I mean, God love him, he'd drawn a fake beard up and worn the hat that I always wore and the hoodie that I always had on. Yeah, that was eye-opening of, hang on a minute, you could do this instead. But that then left me in a very unusual position because, like I'd said, you've got that voice as a teacher say, you're not qualified to do anything else. What on earth would you do? But then I was starting to see, hang on a minute, there is this alternative. And then Easter 2023 was horrific with toing and froing of what to do next. Do you stay? Do you go? I had the choice of you either put up and shut up until you retire, which is goodness knows how many decades away, or you roll the dice and you try something else. And I was just spent the Easter holiday toing and froing from one to the other, going, I do not know what to do here. I am a single dad on my own with 2 kids within the last 6 months. What on earth do I do here? And that's when I found the first ever Pit Pony video.
Brief interlude, dear listener. Couple of questions. Are you a tutor or even a pit pony considering tutoring? And do you fancy getting in the room with myself and Sarah Dunwood learning about the wonderful world of tuition? Then why not join us at the National Tutors Conference hosted by Connexus Tuition on the 29th of July 2025. It's at Chesford Grange, Kenilworth. Links to the tickets are in the show notes below, and we will both see you on the other side.
Wow. Right. Let's take a breath. Let's just take a little bit of a breath. What a roller coaster so far. I want us to move into the next chapters of your journey. Sarah, you've sat, you've listened, you brought all of this in. Wow, what are your thoughts so far with Gareth?
I don't think there's anything that I haven't already said, to be honest.
Yeah.
This whole thing about identity and all the rest of it, I think is the strand that runs through it for me and correlates to what other pit pony guests have talked about is either a complete loss of your identity or not realizing you've lost your identity and realizing that you're masking or whatever. I think that's the critical thing for me, but in the context of your loss is really amplified it for me. Really amplified it for me, which is why my words aren't working currently.
Yes, because I've also known that you're listening and you're taking it in because, like I said at the beginning, it is a deeply personal journey. And thank you for taking us so far, basically. Thank you for taking us so far. But go on, you've invoked the video over that Easter period. Talk us through this.
This is where the next bit is where it's very similar to almost anybody that's watched the Pit Pony video. I watched it, worked out what my bottom line was going to be, and then went, right, I've got 2 little girls, I've got 8 children's books, let's go. So then the May half term of 2023, handed my notice in with no real aim of where to go next. I was stepping off into literally nothing. Come September, there was no paycheck. But I thought, I've got to do this. Even if it all goes horribly wrong, I just go back in a classroom. Yeah, I won't enjoy it, but that's what I'll have to do. I will have to go back in that classroom.
And that's something I always say to people who are considering. You don't have to leave teaching and then put your resignation in for the whole of the system. You leave teaching, you try some things. If it doesn't work, go back. Now, statistically, very few do, but you can go back into the classroom. You can go on supply. We talk about the power of tutoring, There are still things you can do as a halfway house that means you don't have to throw your entire skill set out. Tutoring is a great way to keep some money coming in and keep doing the bits you love. If you don't want to teach by PowerPoints, but you still love teaching year 6, the world of tutoring is amazing for you. And obviously you've got 8 children's books as well, which is something else. So you're in a position of strength. So you leave. What next?
And then I just started taking the attitude of, let's just try anything. Let's see what comes along. Let's see what happens. And since then, I've taught English second language online, which was an amazing experience because I met so many interesting people from all over the world just from sitting in this chair. I went and lived in Oxford for 3 weeks and taught English second language down there, which was something I never would have done had I still been a regular class teacher. I started my tutoring business, which has grown and grown and grown and grown. And then a couple of weeks ago, I was at full capacity. So I've had to remodel and restructure in order to get more children in. So that's thriving. And I did an author day at school round the corner and had the most amazing yet surreal experience. I can't describe what it's like to have a bunch of children in front of you, all hearing what these characters that lived in my head for so long, to then have their names banded about classrooms freely. It was so surreal. And I don't know when this is going out, but on my birthday, I'm going back to the school where I was when Clara died, where I couldn't struggle to go in any of the rooms. And I'm doing an author day there, which is going to be amazing.
Wow, that's a sliding doors story before it's even happened, that I suspect. And that's the bit we listen for in the podcasts. That's the bit where we see our guests lift. And yours has been a really important one as well, because it's not just lifted because this all happened in its classroom, it was teacher based. A lot of what you went through in life that in many ways happened whilst you were a teacher. Your story is quite unique in that respect. Your circumstances of your life actually, for me, are the thrust of the story. The fact you are a teacher is what we're able to hang our hat on and listen to it, really. So is there anything you'd like to talk to us about before we move on to a sliding door story? Is there anything you feel you've not brought to us yet that's important?
The only thing I wanted to say was to those teachers in the classroom that are umming and ahhing about whether to go, whether to stick it out or whether to roll that dice. I've been so close to the very edge of not caring.
Yeah.
That I could see that light. And more people in schools are starting to see it. And the only thing holding them back for some people is I don't know how I'd do it. But I just wanted to say that if you're questioning the system, good. The system needs questioning at the moment. It's broken. That's a different rant that I will have with whoever would like to hear it. But if you want to stay at school, I respect you completely. Some of my best friends are still in education. They are wonderful people. They are amazing. I dock my hat to you. If you can do that job, brilliant. But if you are the ones or one of the ones that wants to go and is just being held back by fear of not knowing what you can do, I am a single dad with 2 kids and just a load of books, and I've made it work.
Yeah. It's not about making it work just from a financial point of view. You've carved a life for the first time since the tragic passing of Clara that probably feels like your own again. So you had almost like a BC before Clara, and now you're coming into the afterlife that you have of that terrible loss.
one of the biggest steps I had in getting there was my best friend read my books and she said to me, you focus a lot on the emotion of your characters. And I went, what do you mean? And she said, well, when one character is interacting with another, you talk a lot about how that character takes what's been said. Or if something happens to that character, you focus a lot on how they feel in the words that you have used. And I hadn't noticed that, but I went back and read them. And I thought, I know what these books are now. These books are my grief. My grief is a literal open book. And I had no idea. I typed all these stories out, but then looking back at them, I can go, oh, I understand how I knew how that character would react. Because I felt it. Yes, it was different, but I know what it feels like to suffer grief. I know what it feels like to not be able to comprehend it. And it's all in my stories.
Wow.
And so the revelation that these books were a metaphor for my grieving process just blew my mind. And now I can't unsee that, but in a glorious way.
And yet, when you're telling your story, it was so obvious. You said to me, and I sat at the side of my third daughter's cot, typing away and I'm like, you were so lost. But I still saw the man as desperate who you said, and I had my nose pinned up to my second daughter's cot. You were typing in the typing and the nose at the cot were still processing grief. I could see that. I could hear that. And I thought, he's not doing a joy project. It's another coping mechanism. Yeah. But the beauty of this is going back to that factory analogy. You've produced something. You've manufactured something. You couldn't produce something in the education system. There was nothing transactional. There was nothing being created. It has been grief, but you've been able to manufacture and produce something that is so powerful on so many levels. Young children are dressing up as your character. It's literature, for goodness sake. It's the lifeblood of what we do. You're talking to the English teacher. Books are our blood. So not only if you find a way to process, to capture, to find your grief, it's in children's books. It's beautiful. So, with that in mind, do you want to share with us a particular sliding doors story that you would feel comfortable in sharing with our listeners? Or do you think we should just say the whole of it has been a sliding doors story? It's your call.
I think it's an ongoing sliding door story.
Perfect.
I think all the sliding door stories that you have, yes, there is one particular moment, but they're all a continual sliding door story. Because otherwise, why on earth did you leave?
Yeah.
If there's, I get there's going to be one particular moment. And for me, living in Oxford for 3 weeks, that was a sliding doors moment.
Yeah.
The afternoons where I just sit on the settee and watch TV, they're sliding doors moments.
Yeah.
When I hear kids talking about my books, sliding doors moment. To me, there was no one in particular, because there's going to be one tomorrow. There's going to be one next week. There's going to be what. To me, there is no one that I could.
Your life has become the sliding doors, and that
sliding doors moment.
You are living your sliding doors moment. That is beautiful. And you know what, Gareth? It has been wonderful to spend time with you. It really, really has. I can't say enjoyed it, but I've really benefited from it. It's one of those stories that levels you. It does make you feel grateful, because whilst you would never say, go and hug your children, when you listen to something like this, you go and hug your kids. There's no two ways about it. So, on behalf of myself, Sarah, and all of our listeners, I want to thank you for what I know was a very important story that you've told us. It wasn't easy for you, but I think it's going to benefit so many people.
Yeah. If I can help one person realise that, you know what, I could step away from teaching and live a dream, good. Job done. Because that's how I...
Right. Thank you, Gareth. And we will see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, friend.
Hello.
Hello. I'm going to suggest now in the reflections of that episode that we don't do the usual kind of epilogue where we chew the fat, we pull over, and we start to analyse education and that kind of thing. I think we should do something just a little bit different. And I think we should just keep this short and sweet. That was very difficult for that man to share that story. It's very raw, and I think it would almost feel wrong if we started dissecting it and me saying, what did you think about this? And what do you think about that? I think we should just take this space to acknowledge our pit ponies and what they do when they come on a podcast. They revisit really, really difficult periods of their life. And that's not easy, is it?
No. You and I both know that when we refer to it as sitting in our story, don't we? Which in some respects diminishes it, because story in my head is fiction rather than what's the word that I want? The account of what's happened. But it's hard to sit in your own story or to reflect back on your own story, because it doesn't matter how far away from it you now are. With some parts of the story, it's always going to hurt like hell.
Yeah. There are things that happen to us in our life that we tell that many times you can tell it without emotion. And I think for many of our guests, it's the first time they've told it start to finish.
Yes.
So all I will say is that we value all of our guests. We value all of their individual experiences in the classroom, the things that go on outside of the classroom, the grief, their joys, their wins. And I'd like to thank Gareth for spending time with us today. And let's just do what he said and appreciate the things we have and sit in a world of gratitude that we are where we are today.
I think it is worth noting that he did say to us that if people wanted to reach out to him who've had similar life experiences, I think he's keen to offer the support that that he struggled to find in the external world, because I think that was really clear that, you know, he had his focus in education, but again, from personal connections, I know that what he experienced can be a very, very, very lonely place, because and he articulated it so well. It's no less painful when you lose a parent or a grandparent, but it's a different experience.
Yeah, it's the what could have beens. So yeah, we'll drop Gareth's details and we'll leave it there, and we'll go and have a nice cup of tea and just have a think. Okay, my friend, I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for staying with us during another great episode of the Pit Pony podcast. And on behalf of myself, Sarah Dunwood, Mike Roberts at Making Digital Real, we wish you all the very best, and we'll see you soon. If you wish to contact me directly for a support session or a clarity call for your next steps, please find my link in the comments below. See you soon.